on us like your favorite employee.
My grievance is my coworker who's always late to work by 10 minutes every day, but texts every day, sorry, they're running a bit behind. She's like 40, lives in her mom's basement.
Whoa.
All right. Yeah, that one, we've talked about the time before. That's don't be that guy. In
Dude,
this case, don't be that gal.
Yeah.
This person doesn't respect your time and thinks that their life's more important than yours. Point blank, period. That's a great grievance right there.
Yep. Don't be late. Don't be consistently late. It's all going to happen sometimes, right? Traffic, God forbid, car accidents. But, it's going to happen sometimes. But don't be late all the time.
Ken from Indiana says, you want my grievance? I worked hard for my degree, worked in higher education. I'm off for winter break, paid, a benefit of my hard work. Nice work, Ken, putting it all together what we talked about. But my boss keeps sending me Teams messages and emails appointments he has set for January because he lives alone. So while I enjoy this break with my family, my phone keeps going off. Don't be that boss, signed Ken from Indiana. Spot on, Ken. That's 100%. I don't really know. This is also a benefit of what we do. Like, we have emails, and I'm pretty sure we use Teams, right? You can tell. I'm an idiot.
We use Teams.
But, we don't use Teams. Our company uses Teams. The big bosses have to have meetings and stuff like that. We have one meeting a month. And Kevin reminds us the day before, right?
Right.
Thank you for doing that, Kevin.
Yes.
Kevin is our Teams, is what I'm saying.
It's all in the phone. If the phone goes away, then we're in deep trouble.
But if I would tell Ken, can't you do an out of office or hey, it's the holiday break, leave me alone kind of message? And then you don't get the dings?
Yeah.
That's what I would do.
Just turn off notifications.
Yeah.
Or remove the app. And then January 1, put it back on.
That's right. Yeah, that's how you do it, Ken. All right, Cease. So we've talked a lot about the Broncos. Well, they need a running back. We've certainly discussed that, and it'll still be a topic of conversation as the season goes on and ramped up as we get into the offseason. They could use help at wide receiver. They need somebody in the tight end room that's a pass-catching threat. We know all about the offensive needs. We've ignored a bit of the defensive needs because they've been good, and that's been, a side of the ball that, if we're being honest, they've won games for the Denver Broncos. We've talked about them elevating Bo Nix and the offense rather than it be the other way around. But boy, did we see a weak link at the linebacker position via Justin Strnad and even Cody Barton in moments of this season and certainly last week on Thursday Night Football.
Yep.
So if I were to ask you, hey, is that the biggest need? What's the biggest hole in this Broncos defense right now? Is it linebacker?
Yeah, but it's the hole that they've always ignored.
Yeah.
Basically. And then you have to ask the question, how much faith do you have in Alex Singleton's return? Because if you feel like Singleton's going to be back and everything's going to be okay, all right, then you're not going to draft the linebacker. Do you feel like Drew Sanders can go from being an edge to back to being an inside linebacker? That could happen. He hasn't played much, so it's not like you'd be ruining him or ruining any sort of progress. And he's already been in inside linebacker meetings. You're just going to do that more because that's now your job. And again, Sanders was my number one ILB when he came out of college. So is that the move there? And with the play of Dondrea Tillman, Jonah Ellis is a future starter, perhaps. Are you set at edge enough to say, which is kind of weird because edge is so important, but are you kind of set because you're like, yeah, we got pass rushers. You know what we don't have? ILBs. Drew Sanders, you're an ILB that can rush the passer, as we saw in the Chargers game. He had the sack on Justin Herbert right up the middle. So, yeah, continue to do that. Linebacker is that need, but it's also a need that they've never really addressed since Danny Trevathan.
Yeah.
Good old Danny Trevathan, man. They really haven't done it. Barton didn't really do it. Singleton didn't really do it. This is what they're doing at that position in this defense. So, yeah. Linebacker is a need, but not for them.
Not for the Broncos.
Yeah, because they just...
Oh, the team, you're saying. Yeah.
And every time that they've had a chance, when they drafted Noah Fant, I wanted one of the Devons, right?
Oh, that was Devin Bush and
Devin White.
Devin White,
White was already off the board, but then Bush was right there staring at your face, and you know, hey, let's move back. You
Didn't
gave
they
the
trade
pick
to the Steelers?
Yes,
Yeah.
they gave the pick to the Steelers that became Devin Bush. So it's like, yeah, I've always wanted that position addressed since Danny, and they just don't. So I'm not going to expect it to happen.
Even with Alex, I know he runs around with his hair on fire, and you see him all over the field. 49's always in the scrum or making the tackle. He just turned 31 a couple of weeks ago.
Yep.
And he's coming off of a major injury.
Yep.
I mean, what is fair to expect from a guy like Alex Singleton moving forward? Probably not being that same player anymore.
Right. And that's where you have to look at it and go, okay, who's the next guy? Is that Drew Sanders? They might be taking a look.
Okay. A couple more positions that I think are worth the conversation. I agree with you, by the way, 100%. LB is number one. ILB, I should say, is number one. But this franchise, they have literally told us, yeah, that's not a priority for us for about 30 years. So
right.
We'll look at that with the draft and free agency, how serious they are. Depth at cornerback, I think, can be one. Now, maybe that's getting answered in real time with Chris Abrams' drain and Damari Mathis maybe even evolving into a better player than we've seen in the past. But right now, I can't just go, oh, I've saw a small dose of Chris Abrams' drain and feel confident about it. I've seen a big enough dose to know I'm not confident about Damari Mathis. So that might be on my list as well.
Yeah, and I'd say it's kind of like backup quarterback. When you can just keep taking reserve corners, you're like, just go back to the well. Oh, that guy didn't work out. Yeah, whatever. Next year, there's going to be like 4 or 5 guys that you're going to keep rotating through. So backup corner to me is like backup quarterback. I take a backup quarterback every year in the draft because, that's a conversation we'll have in the offseason. What are they going to do at backup? Because Wilson could be gone. Stidham could be gone. His deal's expired. Wilson's deal's expired. Who's the backup to Bo Nix? Who are the Broncos adding? Who should they add? Should they go with a veteran? Yeah, whatever. Just draft somebody, and if they don't work out, just draft somebody else. Backup corner, I feel the same way. So this year in the 7th round, take another corner. 6th round, take another corner. Just keep adding those corners and at least get maybe some special teams help.
And then the last one, and it just kind of goes into just expiring contracts. DJ Jones is one of them, but it's just interior line depth. DJ Jones being one of them. Malcolm Roach is a guy I really like. What's he got left in the tank? But he's here for a couple of years,
right?
As is Zach Allen and JFM, who they gave a deal to when he got traded over from. I forget where he come from. The Jets? The Jets.
Yeah.
So interior line depth, again, I think that's what you're kind of hinting at. That's a second, third day draft thing where you're just adding a few pieces that you hope develop into something in a year or two.
So here's an interesting offseason conversation. Let's jot this one down because I will forget it. Will having more money for them impact the way that they approach free agency? Now, that's a duh question. Yeah, of course it will. They'll have more money. But it's kind of like when you have to live poor. And you're like, you know what? I'm going to be real tight with my grocery bill. I'm going to make sure that I'm not driving in excess of my gas bill isn't high. Like, I'm going to keep the fireplace off. Like, when you have to live poor, or I would say this, for those days when we have a million things to talk about and we have to concentrate it down, like those shows are really, really packed with information because, or in a YouTube standpoint, like we only have like a 20-minute show. We better give you the best 20 minutes possible. No him-hawing around. The way that they were able to approach free agency this last year with no money was really good, outside of the Josh Reynolds move, but really good in the way that you make a trade for JFM, you get Malcolm Roach onto cheap, you know what I mean? So you add these things because you're not shopping at the top stores, you're shopping in bargain bins.
Right.
They're going to have money to shop at the top stores, but the way they've approached the bargain bin, it's like you got to keep that mindset, right?
Yeah.
Like when you want to save money, there's pain involved. Like to be rich, you have to essentially like save money so you're not spending money.
Right.
Not that you're acting poor, but you're just not spending your money. You're frugal. So an off-season topic for sure, but maybe with all this money that they have, like, okay, that's great, but make sure that you're kind of doing what you did last year, which was living cheap, but getting the right players for a really good price.
Yep. I like that because I feel like I kind of do that. Like I